Where we last left off, Manshine City had defeated Bacha FC thanks to Nishioka's awakening to assist with Isagi's game-winning goal. And of course with that the newest bids were revealed, and our next broadcasting match will be Manshine City vs Ubers, which we had only covered the conversation before the kickoff of Isagi interacting with Burū and then interacting with Nagi. Our lazy genius now has his sights set and vocalized. I don't understand you. Thinking so much is really annoying, but you make it so easy. Look. Beating Burū and the Ubers should be a top priority, but this game, I'm willing to sacrifice everything so I can learn from you. Your style is now something I will devour to grow even more. So how will Isagi fare in this match where two of his strongest Blue Lock rivals are actively competing against him, both on his team and the opposing team? Well, today we will find that out. However, before we continue with part 6 of this what if scenario, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more what if scenario content like this one. We are covering all of Manshine vs Ubers today, so if you want to see part 7 as soon as possible, which I will dub as the final part of this what if series, support this video alongside the other installments as much as you can. This is the formation for Manshine City for this match, and for the Ubers, their formation stays relatively the same as the original story. The kickoff can finally commence with Manshine starting with the ball. Isagi makes a pass to Agi so he can run up the pitch with Metavision active. He's seeing how Ubers respond to their attack formation, and instantly he can tell that they are using 2 to 3 players to press whoever has the ball. But just when Isagi managed to break through the looser line of defense, Ubers' real hand is revealed with the new Gen 11 defender Don Lorenzo, known as the Ace Eater, completely sweeps the ball from Isagi's feet. Lorenzo fakes a long shot and then goes into his unique style of handling, zombie dribbling. He easily makes it past the unaware Blue Lockers playing for Manshine, but Agi wasn't as easy to shake due to Agi's own research on Lorenzo's style. But research can compensate for a physical demonstration, as all the attackers from Ubers were pushing upfield when Nico swapped with Lorenzo for a position change. Agi caught off guard for mere moments was all that Lorenzo needed to move around Agi and then make a pass to Burū on his right to take the final shot. However, this time Reo was the one to block the pass before Burū could retrieve it instead of Isagi. Isagi had the same idea in mind but didn't have the time to make up the distance. Reo now with his limited time makes a pass right over to Chigiri to reliably get upfield. Chigiri had to deal with defenders like Ryu and Aiku who can use their length and jump height to block Chigiri's shot course off, but it didn't stop our Panther from attempting to blitz through, only for Sendo to tackle the ball from Chigiri out of nowhere. The ball lands into Nico's possession and he matches off with Isagi. Nico didn't feel as secure dribbling around him, but he sets up for a long pass. However, from behind, Nagi places a hand on Nico's back and extends his leg in front of Nico to steal the ball from behind. Nagi was using Nico's newest blind spot that Isagi managed to draw out from the matchup, and even before that, he used the positioning needed to get ahead of the ball to use the tactic to begin with. Nagi was using Isagi's arsenal to his advantage. What he was lacking in spatial awareness, he can make up for in unwavering belief in Isagi's ability to know where the ball will end up and knowing his opponent's blind spots. Nagi now began to dribble upfield, making a pass to Agi, who had Lorenzo hot on his trail. Lorenzo identified Agi as the anchor for Manshine's plays, but also knowing Agi, he didn't strive to make any goals himself, so he was basically a midfielding tactician in the striker position to pose as a goal scorer. Agi avoids Lorenzo's interception by making a high arc pass over him. Nagi goes for a chest trap, but Burū has fallen back to respond to Nagi's push by marking him in the position he was in. Nagi's eyes ignited and his aura flared to the challenge, placing a hand on Burū's shoulder to get more leverage, and instead he controlled the ball with his stomach to propel it forward enough to deliver a strike directly after with his right leg, scoring the first goal of the game. Nagi had used Isagi's schematics and his own creativity to make a new goal scoring formula. It was an anti-chemical reaction trick he had in mind ever since Burū and Isagi developed their own in the second selection. Nagi celebrated the goal by landing on the turf like Spider-Man because it just felt natural. Agi came over and gave him a high five in celebration, and Isagi was seen grinning from the distance. If that's how Nagi was going to play it, he needed to pull off something of his own, both with Nagi's talents and limitations. The next kickoff commenced, and very similar to the original, we had Isagi simply steal the ball, but that led into a trap for the Ubers to capitalize on, executing a high press to Isagi to steal the ball back for an advance upfield. Isagi was left in the dust, and Burū, upon retrieving the ball and being predicted to be the one to shoot, actually passes as a cluster of Ubers players block the vision of Manshine's goalie. No look exchanges in a confined space with position position switches was making Burū hidden, whilst he was the only player on Uber's team who had eyes on the goal. The stealth line pelts the ball into the net for a quick clap back at Manshine, making the score 1-1. Reo felt overwhelmed in that position, not knowing how many exchanges would occur before the climax, so now he was ready to bite back at the Pride directly. Agi gets the restarting ball and Reo requests for a pass backwards. Agi obliges as part of his curiosity to Reo's developing tactic. Reo needs to use metavision not only to enhance his vision, but to enhance his copy abilities. He starts his rush upfield, working with players like Haragi for the first time just to assist getting past midfielders efficiently. As Nico is understanding the blueprint on metavision, Reo is easily able to conjure a contingency plan when he is able to pick up on the signs of Nico's evolution. It was incomplete currently, so he decided to use his physical advantage he had over Nico to feint him out and dribble around him. Now the real fun can begin. Reo makes a pass back over to Agi. He hopes that his and Agi's physicalities are enough to compensate for this developing situation. Passes back and forward, a combination of position changes and no-look passes now behind the gathering Ubers defenders left the Ubers goalie confused on the ball's position, and it was too late for him to realise that Reo was executing a copy of Burū's stealth goal. He shoots at the precise moment when the goalie could not see him, so he couldn't respond in time for the incoming ball that hits the net. Uber's own strategy was used against them. It was so seamless that none of the defenders, even if they recognised it, couldn't prepare in time before it was masterfully showcased. The score was now at 2-1 for Manshine. Metavision assisted Reo not only to get into the position for a goal, but to be wary of his surroundings instead of making Agi do it for him. Agi only needed to give him the ball and follow diligently to his movements. So if you're wondering how a metavision user can pull off a stealth shot that has only been used by someone with Predator's Eye, remember Reo can copy skills and abilities. Predator's Eye is one of those things, and the stealth shot is a combination of tunnel vision onto the goal and activeness constructed by his allies. Reo just can't copy natural physical talents like Chigiri's speed, Aiku's jump height, or Kaiser's leg swing speed as examples, meaning Reo, upon seeing Burū pull this shot off, with letting himself being slotted into place by his teammates, means that he can pull it off by sharing the activeness with Agi to make the player who has the ball unforeseen to the goalie. Reo had to be more aware of what position would make him more hidden with metavision, whilst Burū let that be constructed by his teammates, so he would only need to focus on shooting. Let me know if that makes any sense. To me, this is why I actually believe Reo ended up copying from Burū's arsenal of skills when tasked in copying each of the top 23 Blue Lock qualifiers for the U20 World Cup. With that latest goal, it is now time for the star exchange with Snuffy and Chris Prince taking to the field. Isagi had been trying to assess the flaws in Uber's defense and offense, but now with Snuffy coming onto the pitch, this completely messes up his thought process. He can only rely on Chris marking Snuffy enough to make his contributions minimal at best, but as we know that wouldn't happen because he's quite literally known as the best all-rounder player in the world. The kickoff ball from Uber's side leads to alternative circumstances compared to Isagi playing for Bastard Munich in the original. One of the more drastic differences is that Manshine is stronger on defense compared to Munich, based on players who can fit the role of defense, not including Isagi like Reo, Agi, Chigiri, and Nishioka. These players provided little chance for Burū to pull off the same shot as he did for his first goal, and this would save Manshine from relying on their goalie to somehow block the shot in a situation where only Gagamaru had succeeded. Burū would still adopt the same frustrations of being stopped at every turn by the opposing team, but not just because Isagi was stopping Snuffy's finishing tactics, but also the likes of Reo and even Nishioka on occasion, due to their developments in metavision assisting with their contributions on defense. Burū was sick of these tactics that made him play in a now predictable format, and like the original, he hands in his resignation to reignite his ego. The design didn't cut it for Burū. He was a restrictive player that played to his own tactics, his own line of principles, a pattern that thrives with unpredictability and lack of common sense. So resigning from the logical and best approach of using Snuffy's tactics would favour such impulsive desires. He lets his individual skills carry him, and Isagi attempts to follow along, slowly piecing together the concept of ego types the more that he hears Burū's vocal displeasure of freedom and taking an easy path to become king. After nutmegging Isagi, in the brief moment before Burū can shoot from his desired position to defy his master, Nagi steps in to intervene. Nagi was familiar with the feeling Burū was striving for. It was one he was trying to reject himself, only to realise that him rejecting it is one of the reasons why he couldn't grow. And much like Burū, Nagi was also restrictive and individualistic, so he knew the king would reposition to take a difficult yet possible shot over the more favourable passing route. Nagi just barely blocks Burū's shot, but the loose ball falls to Mark Snuffy, who seemed displeased in Burū's dismantling of his tactics when Burū's own play did not pay off. He uses his martial arts to help with his body control and movement to push through Chris Prince and scores himself, sick of the childish antics. Upon scoring himself, Snuffy in this scenario doesn't seek to continue the dreams of his late friend. However, he felt understandably disrespected by someone as young as Burū who thinks he could put a stake in his ideology. A fool to think he knows better than himself in what it means to be the best. So he aims to crush Burū personally once he reaches the world stage to show him the error of his ways, and how everything he gave him was the only way to become Ubers' next king. And with that, the star exchange came to an end. Burū didn't have as much ground to stand on as the ace for the team anymore. He actively went against Snuffy's tactics and did not prove himself of being capable of leading the team, and this was all because of Isagi and even more so Nagi, who had intervened during that vital moment. The three form a rival triangle, thriving most of all by the end of this match. They will crush one another to score the final goal of the game, and to commence themselves the victor in their personal three-way feud. The final restart commences. Isagi wants to make his final play as hastily as possible, before Nagi and Burū could even have the chance of responding, so he uses Nishioka. He passes back to him when he gets the ball from Agi, and the two dissect the gaps in Uber's now unsure defensive formation, only for Burū to challenge Isagi directly, as he was overcome with nonsensical ambition. Isagi strugglingly makes a pass to Nishioka, but Nico exterminated the push with both direction and magnitude. Oh yeah! Giving Lorenzo the ball. Lorenzo has immense respect and gratitude for Burū nonetheless, for being the reason Snuffy will continue his career. So even if Ubers were unsure if the king was fit for the crown, his strongest loyal servant will commit to Burū's selfishness until the end. Lorenzo dribbled back upfield only to be halted by Reo, but by then Burū has made his way back up. So Lorenzo makes a pass over to him, and Burū chop feints around Isagi and then does the same when Nagi approaches, being more wary of his positioning and how much he's using Isagi's foreseeing of blind spots to his advantage. Neo rushes in to use his physique and bodyguarding methods to keep Burū from facing the goal at a particular angle to shoot, which leads Burū to nutmeg him, only for Chigiri to completely clear the ball. And in a replicating situation to the original, Sendo seemed ready to feed on the scraps of the loose ball, to the shock of the Manshine and Ubers players. But his efforts were sabotaged by the more driven Agi, who clears the ball off the pitch before Sendo can reach it. He needed to know who on Manshine would scratch the hardest for a goal. Their evolutions did not take them this far for him to bow out and settle for his own unfinished development either. He shoots a smirk at Isagi and Nagi. I want neither of you to strive for anything less than your ideals. Show me who stands at the peak of desire to conclude this match. Both our protagonists, whilst not aligned in many ways, both strive for one thing, to surpass the other with their goal. The throw-in happens for Ubers, and it goes to Ayu, who is able to easily reach it with a chest takedown and passes it back to Lorenzo. Lorenzo dribbles past both Reo and Nishioka and passes it over to Aiku. A sneaky action takes place with Aiku attempting to actually shoot onto the goal, but Agi blocks it. Then it goes to Burū, who is double pressed by Nagi and Isagi, so Burū tries for a chop feint, but Nagi cuts it off and instantly propels past Burū and Isagi with the ball. The three were now charging upfield. Isagi was thinking of his next move whilst he ran. The possibilities of Nagi scoring were seemingly endless, with his motivation burning to become the protagonist of the world. And if Burū stole back the ball, who knew what he could do with his hunger of reclaiming his title of king of the field, with an ever-growing number of doubters that he has to prove wrong. But he was Isagi Yoichi, and he will become the world's best striker. Isagi splits off from the two. Nagi was so focused on keeping the ball with an almost clear path directly to the goal, and only needing to deal with Burū and an upcoming but exhausting Nico, and Burū himself was so hyperfixated on stealing the ball back for his counter push, Isagi foresaw another possibility with his freedom. Trust his reflexes. Without a second of doubt, head to where they will collide before they get there. Make the best out of a situation where he can construct that very position into both a meta point and a goal spot. Nagi makes his continuous touches into trap-related dribbles, which of course gets around Nico with ease, but Burū was relying on his body to effectively pressure or maybe even go for a foul to stop Nagi's momentum entirely. However, Nagi was just in his shooting range. He goes for a volley but fakes it to trip Burū up, but Burū wasn't shaken, so he goes for a second fake volley, in which does trip up the lion, but his closure hasn't been lost, and by the time Nagi went for a third fake volley, Isagi was now also there, appearing from Nagi's blind spot and picking up the recently free-stage fake volleyed ball. Nagi clenched his teeth. He worked too hard to lose it now, so he desperately attempted to go for a trap on the ball if Isagi shot instantly, whilst Burū was going for a block if Isagi had decided to trap the ball instead and shoot. These circumstances were the perfect setup for his newest goal-scoring innovation, a top performance. Once again adapting Nagi's juggling shot into a two-gun volley to score the final goal of the match. As we know, in the previous part of this series, Isagi managed to do this trick as a pass, but now he was able to draw out Nagi's talents and used the closing distance he made after his fake volleys to squeeze in and steal the remaining ball for his own fake out against both Nagi and Burū. They were already unprepared to see Isagi sneak into their blind spots, especially after being so focused on each other to win the ball's favour, which led to Isagi capitalising on this very small window to steal and execute the shot. The game ends in Manshine's victory. The team celebrated with Isagi aside from Nagi, who stood to the side next to Burū, both annoyed in their own differing expressioned ways. Isagi had also won a lot of belief and clarity in Agi's eyes. Whether or not that will provide him additional benefits will be revealed in the next part of the series. So before we end off part 6, here are the new bids of the relevant characters from this video's game, plus the top 10 players all following this match, and PXG vs Barcher that ended in a score of 3-2 for PXG. In 19th with a bid of 23 million yen is Nishioka. In the 18th position we have Fukaku with a bid of 28 million yen. In 17th with a bid of 29 million yen is Sendo. The lack of a goal now puts him lower than his original story amount. In 15th with a bid of 35 million yen is Nico. Tied for 11th is Kunigami and Ayu with bids of 40 million yen. Tied for 9th, which also makes the 10th position currently null and void, is Chigiri and Atoya with bids of 50 million yen. In 8th is Aiku with a bid of 55 million yen. In 7th is Ryo with a bid of 80 million yen thanks to his copy of Baru's first goal. Tied in 5th with bids of 100 million yen is both Bachara and Shido. In 4th with a bid of 160 million yen is Isagi. In 3rd with a bid of 165 million yen is Burū. In 2nd with a bid of 175 million yen is Nagi. And in 1st, as we should all expect, is Rinatoshi with a bid of 198 million yen. That's where we shall end off part 6 of What If Isagi Joined Manshine City. The next part of this series will also be covering the entire game of Manshine vs PXG as the final broadcasted game in the Neo Egoist League. So if you want to see part 7 soon, as I said before, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and support all previous installments of the series. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and until next time, peace.